You were at Benghazi and involved in that battle.
Blown up 3 times. I had about 26 holes in me. My left arm was about severed off.
You just got left twisting in the wind after the fact.
It's unacceptable.
You have a choice to be a victim or not. And I make that choice every day not to be a victim and to move forward and to help others move forward as well.
Hey, welcome back to the Dr. Phil podcast. I appreciate you tuning in. And if you are moved by this incredible story, and I think you will be, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, follow, and share this with your friends, because I think it's an important story. We want you to follow, we want you to share, because awareness is the first step towards change, and we're talking about things that need to change. Today, I'm bringing you a story of sacrifice and an unwavering mission to support America's unsung heroes. I'm talking about the military, and particularly the veterans. But what about the silent protectors who operate in the shadows? Mark Geist, a decorated U.S. Marine and security contractor, became a household name after surviving the deadly 2012 Benghazi attack. Now, why did he become a household name? Because he was credited with saving 25 lives in one of the most harrowing battles in modern history. Now, alongside his wife, Krystal, they founded an organization called Shadow Warriors Project. And this is the only nonprofit that I know of that's dedicated to supporting wounded private security contractors and their families. Warriors who serve in the world's most dangerous places, but they don't have the benefits of veterans. And veterans have great support, and thank God that they do. They deserve it, they need it, and I'm so glad that they have it. Some of those that are shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow with them are private security contractors, and they don't get anything from the government. They're doing the same work and taking the same risk and in the same danger, but when it's done, they're just left on their own. So from the battlefield to the home front, Mark and Krystal are fighting a new fight, and one for healing, resilience, and justice. There are those we cannot forget, and Mark and Krystal have made damn sure that we don't. So Mark, Krystal, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
You two obviously are all about giving, and I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. I want to talk a little bit about maybe what has really motivated you to want to give back. You know, you've got this Shadow Warriors project that you and Krystal have created. This is a foundation dedicated to support private military security contractors. These are paramilitary security operations that take place in some of the world's most dangerous places. I mean, they're just, as I said in the introduction, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow with the military. They're in there taking the same risks, doing the same work, and exposed to the same stress, trauma, and all that the military is. But when they come home, they don't have the benefits that the veterans do. And I'm very glad that the veterans do. That's a great thing. I certainly support that. But I think it's terrible that these people that are working right along beside them don't have that support. You were at Benghazi and involved in that battle. Talk about your experiences there and what impact that had on you and how that led to feeling the need to help others that had been in a situation like yours.
You know, I've been contracting for about 9 years when September 11th, 2012 came about. And you know, I knew guys that had gotten hurt or injured, but never really understood the backside of what happens when you do until I was injured myself. You know, I got blown up 3 times. I had about 26 holes in me. My left arm was about severed off, you know, and lost 2 of my friends right next to me. And through that, you know, we only got paid when my feet were in the country I was contracted to work in. And so on September 12th, that evening, I flew out of Libya on a medical transport plane, got into Germany, and that was the last day I got paid. I was in the hospital for, I think, 6 to 8 weeks, another year and a half, 2 years of physical therapy. And what I had was a workman's comp claim, and that was it. And, it really opened our eyes to what those paramilitary contractors that work for the government go through and what they have to deal with. And we just didn't want that to happen to anybody else. We almost lost our house. Wasn't able to really have much of a Christmas except for the blessings and grace of a few people that we worked with that had given us stuff for our kids. We wanted to never let that happen to anyone else, and that's what really drove us to starting Shadow Warriors Project.
Krystal, you've seen this happen, and not just to your husband, but to others. And this is something that really motivated you. This is a passion. This isn't just a project. This is a passion.
Absolutely. When Mark come home and he was still battered and bruised, and after I don't know what surgery, he said, I want to start a foundation so people don't have to go through this anymore. And I said, what? I don't know the first thing about it, but let's do it. Let's help and do what we can. And so I ask God every day how we can be a blessing. And we answer the phone call, not knowing what to expect. And you know what? We're here to walk through the fire, the same fire that we went through. Hopefully we can help navigate the red tape that we had to navigate and ease some of the burdens and bring hope where hope may be lost. And, we help medically, maybe treatment for surgery, maybe therapy for PTSD. We help financially for others who are facing losses for their home. And like Mark said, there was a Christmas where we couldn't afford to buy Christmas presents. And thankfully, somebody from the office sent our family gifts. And so that's near and dear to my heart as well. Is so every year we pick a family that we can provide Christmas for.
That's great. And I want people that don't know the story to understand this, because in America, we need to take care of those people that stand up for this country and fight for this country. And the truth is that, Mark, you were credited with saving 25 Americans during the Benghazi attack, and you're still paying the price for that. You're still recovering from injuries that you sustained during that battle. And I don't want to traumatize you further by going into too much detail about that, but I do want people to understand the injustice that's been done here. By the last day you got paid was the day you landed in Germany. Talk about what you're comfortable talking about that took place in Benghazi during that battle, and what you had to do to help save 25 Americans that you just got left twisting in the wind after the fact.
So I was a private military contractor for the CIA, and there were 6 of us on our team. We had a sister team up in Tripoli, which was about a 3-4 hour plane ride away. That night, I was out in town with a female case officer, providing security for her. We were meeting with some people that we had to meet with and get some information from. And I got a call from Tyrone Woods. He was our team leader, and he said, "Hey, you need to get back to the annex and stay away from the consulate." And kind of put it in perspective for the listeners and viewers, is the annex was about a mile away from the consulate where the U.S. ambassador was, along with his security detail. And at our facility, we had about 23 people that were all part of the CIA annex. Everything from case officer positions down to a cook, and we provided our own medics, but we had electricians and stuff like that, because we got to be a self-contained little village, basically. And when I got back to the annex, I had taken over security there. The rest of the team had went over to the consulate because they had been overran by over 40 armed individuals. The rest of the team had went over there, was able to push through, retake that compound. and start searching for the ambassador and Sean Smith, because they were unaccounted for. Found Sean Smith. They pulled his body out. He was already deceased from smoke inhalation, but couldn't find the ambassador. And Tig and Tyrone went in and out of that building, and it was just completely full of smoke. And they would explain it. They couldn't even see the front of their rifle as they're going in and out, as how bad it was. And for about, probably 15, 20 times. And while they were there, they got counterattacked by an unknown exact number, quite a few people, though, RPGs, AK-47s, belt-fed machine guns, and they were able to repel that attack. And at that time, they had to decide if they were going to stay there and search more for the ambassador, or go ahead and fall back to the annex, because the consulate was really a undefendable position for the amount of people we had. It was almost 8 acres versus the annex, which was about the size of a football field. So they fell back to the annex. The security team for the ambassador had made their way back through an ambush, getting back to the annex, and we started up the fight from there, or at least got ready for the fight that we expected would come our way.
War in Iran is heating up, and the fallout's reaching us fast. Markets are rattled, global confidence is shaky, and investors are bracing for what's next. This week alone, hedge funds moved billions into hard assets, while central banks quietly stockpiled gold. In times like these, smart people don't sit back, they move towards safety. For me, that means gold and silver. Secure your future now while there's still time. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. Gold is already up big this year, and with more volatility ahead, you cannot afford to wait. You could even get up to $15,000 in free silver with a qualified purchase. Don't wait for the next market shock. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 now before it's too late. You've actually written about this. It's become a movie. The book is 13 hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. This is a must read for people. And when you read this book, when you understand what happened and what happened to you, you understand why the two of you are dedicated to doing what you're doing. Until I really dove into this, and I'd read so many stories and seen so many headlines and news stories about this, I didn't understand some of the details about what you were up against at this time, like the size of this compound. That's pretty overwhelming to navigate all of that. And getting 25 people out of there and getting them out of there alive, this had to be one of the most harrowing battles in modern history. How long did this feel like? I mean, you talk about 13 hours, but this had to feel like 2 weeks, particularly when you can't even see inside the buildings and all. What was your mindset at the time? I mean, you can turn around and walk away. That's certainly an option, and people did, but you didn't. What was your mindset at the time?
You know, it was just doing the job that I volunteered or I chose to do, and that was to protect American citizens overseas in some of the worst countries and worst places in the world. And I know the guys that I worked with, our team, all of them felt exactly the same way, as well as any other teams that were in the area, like Glenn's team that was up in Tripoli. You know, when they heard about it, they were just, and because we got, the first attack came at the consulate, came at about 9:30, somewhere around 9:30 to 9:50. Everybody got to put on alert immediately at that time within Libya, as well as forwarded into AFRICOM, which is Africa Command, and all the way up through to Washington, D.C. through the State Department and their reporting procedures. And, at that time, everybody's just trying to get there that can, and we didn't know it at the time, but when later we found out that a lot of people were restricted from, turned back, or weren't allowed to leave to come help.
How were comms at the time? Were you able to communicate? Were you able to talk to each other and create some kind of a tactical plan?
Yeah, for us, our team on the ground, we had secure radios, we had unsecure cell phones, and that's what I was on initially out in town. And I didn't understand until I got in my vehicle where I had my secure comms is exactly what was going on. And when I turned on the radio, I heard what was happening at the consulate because their team leader had been on the radio, and you could hear the explosions in the background from RPGs. You could hear the gunfire. And at one point, he came over the radio and said, hey, if you guys don't get here now, we're all going to die. And you could hear the fear in his voice at that time because they didn't have the ability to defend against 40 armed individuals on 8 acres. And to be honest, they didn't have the same type of background and history and training and in combat that what we that worked for the CIA, what we call GRS, Global Response Staff, had.
How long did it take you guys to get there and intercede?
So the team themselves were, they were getting ready to try to come over. And while they were trying to leave, and the chief of base, his name was Bob, told them not to go because he was trying to get local assets to kind of help out, because I'm guessing for the most part is because he didn't want to, one, lose his security team for his base, or expose the annex to any more scrutiny than maybe what has been there before. And most of that was we were pretty sublime to everything and to the population. Most of them thought that we were either British or French or another, not Americans, because we didn't advertise that at all.
When you were able to get people out, where did you go? What was safe ground at that time? I mean, you're in Libya, for God's sakes.
The safest ground we had was the annex. And because, one thing, I call it my 6 Ps is prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And we're always ready for the fight. Recently, probably within 2-3 weeks, we had gotten in a shipment of ammo. So we probably had close to 60,000 rounds if we needed it. We had belt-fed machine guns. We had M4s, and we had grenade launchers. So we were pretty secure, or feeling that we could defend our location. We had elevated positions, fighting positions that were that we'd previously built. We had deployed ammo at each position. So if you were moving around, you didn't have to worry about carrying ammo. You had plenty with you. We just knew that we were going to take the fight to them. And we had interlocking fires all the way around the base. So we could really portray ourselves to be a lot bigger than what we were.
Krystal, as you deal with these men and women that come back now, and what role Mark served in this, which is a stellar example of what people go through in these roles. How does this sit with you that there's not really a support plan? There's not really there's nothing in place to take care of these men and women when they come back. Some injured, all traumatized, all exposed to these kind of things when they're in these battle zones. That has to be frustrating, and you've reacted to it. But what do you say to yourself, and what do you say to them when they come back and there's just really no infrastructure to support?
Yeah, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. You hear so many times that private security contractors make all this money and this and that, when really you figure their time overseas is, if you look at it hourly, they're making, $15 to $20 an hour being overseas. And that's not a lot of money. And then when they come home and they're injured, and their contracts are taken away like ours was, you're facing getting kicked out of your home. There's days I had to count pennies to buy milk. And then, we had to sometimes fight to get Mark back to Walter Reed for more medical help. So it's unacceptable. I've learned how to navigate the system to get Mark the help that he needs and be that advocate for him. And that's part of when I answer the phone is that's my job. I turn into that advocate again. I help find the resources. We've worked with many a great company and got people a lot of help, and we're there to help give hope and to keep people in their homes and to provide and help get them the treatment. I mean, we had a gentleman who Mark called and the man was getting ready to commit suicide that night. And Mark was able to get him into the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, Georgia. He was paralyzed. And because of the help that we've been able to give him and the resources, he's still paralyzed, but he has hope enough that he's made himself walk, even hike up what was that?
Stone Mountain.
Stone Mountain.
He hiked up, he was paralyzed from the chest down, actually from the neck down. He could use some of his arms, and he actually taught himself to walk with a little bit of help from some of his firefighter buddies that he had made. He walked up and hiked up Stone Mountain, which was over a mile up to the top, and that's just the resilience and the focus and the stamina that those that are serving this country have that, and that are willing to do whatever for America and willing to put up for that. But, as Krystal said, I mean, they deserve more than what they get.
Absolutely. And I think for the wives and the caregivers of these warriors, is giving up is not an option. You've got to be an advocate, and you've got to light that fire under yourself and do what's necessary.
Well, isn't it true that the suicide rate amongst veteran and law enforcement wives are about the same as the veteran rate? And there's no government agency that documents this. And you guys have found out about this through other nonprofits and individual families who've lost their wives and mothers. And you guys are putting a focus on this and turning a light on it when nobody else really is.
I looked it up. I think for military active duty, I think the number was 11 and a half, and it didn't specify if that was daily or monthly, but it's too many. And I had a conversation with a lady who lost her daughter, and and again, that's just something that we want to step in and make a difference, make an impact. We have Shadow Warriors Project, but I recently created Her Warrior Heart, which is a part of Shadow Warriors Project, but it's for the ladies. God put on my heart about 8 years ago to be an advocate and a voice and bring these ladies together and give them a community and a place that they could just talk, heal, and be restored. And also just let them know that, hey, you guys matter too. I battled right alongside Mark. I wasn't in Benghazi, but I was home.
There's a feeling of helplessness on the spouse's part sometimes. It's like you'd probably feel better if you were there and you could actually be part of it and be directly supportive. And there is a feeling of helplessness when you're far away and you can't get involved, you can't get the information you want to get. That's a terrible stress. I want to talk about some of the misconceptions about private security contractors, because there are huge misconceptions. And I think if we can clear some of that up, we can maybe motivate people to get more involved in this great project that you guys are doing, which I want to turn our attention to. But I want to clear up some misconceptions first. You say that people think that these private security contractors are an offensive element, you say, but we're not. We're defense. Our job isn't to engage the enemy unless we have no choice. We're there to protect people and get them to safety. So people think these private security contractors, they often use the word mercenary as synonymous with that. And that's not even almost the case. Talk about that, Mark.
And you're 100% right. A lot of people, and there's been a lot of bad press over the years since the beginning of the war on terror about the private military contractors and the broad range of things they do. I mean, specifically what we represent and help are the security guys, because they're doing stuff that is outside of the wire, and they're going out. Like that night, I'm out by myself with a female case officer. There's no way I'm going to be an offensive capability. I don't want to engage with the enemy. My whole goal is to stay as far away from the bad guys as possible. We don't go seeking that out. I would say from a definition standpoint, the biggest difference between a mercenary and a private security contractor is you're working for our government under a U.S. government contract that is to protect people, where A mercenary will be willing to work for just about anybody and be that army for another country. We saw that go back all the way to the Revolutionary War. The Brits hired the Hessians to fight against the those that were fighting for our republic, and they were German soldiers that were brought over to do that. And that's not what private military contractors do. To the point, it is private military contractors aren't something new. A lot of people think they are, but they've been around since the Revolutionary War. When you look at General Lafayette, who was hired by George Washington to help train the troops, every war since there has been, I mean, during the Civil War and the battle of in any of those battles, you had the camp that traveled with the military, and a lot of them would contract with the military to sell them goods and take care of the troops and provide those wares and provide that security in the rear elements, all the way up through World War II or World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. We saw a lot of that. And then the biggest difference, I think, with the war on terror is just because it was so large and so long, it became a more prominent thing. During the fall of Afghanistan, as we pulled out, there was 2.6 contractors for every one soldier in country. And that was because they provided a lot of the cooks, the food service, the transportation, and security and airplanes and things like that, the military just couldn't or wouldn't cover.
You say there were 2.6 contractors for every one military personnel in Afghanistan when the U.S. pulled out, for example. So a lot of this was contracted. And I think people think that there's no difference between mercenaries and defense contractors, and that's just not true. Mercenaries fight for anybody that'll pay them. Contractors fight for their country. And they're there working defense. Did you know when you were going to Benghazi that it was going to be particularly dangerous?
Yeah, because, I mean, they didn't send us to protect case officers and provide that security to places that weren't dangerous. I will say, because where I had come from before that was Pakistan, and I actually felt less safe in Pakistan than I did in Libya, especially in Benghazi, because the average citizen in Benghazi loved the Americans. They were happy that we had could help them overthrow Gaddafi, that he had gotten out of there because he'd been so oppressive to the people, especially the people in Eastern Libya, because they're two different tribes from the east to the west. And, they were really happy about it. They supported us. But, no matter where you go, there's always going to have those terrorist elements out there. And Al-Qaeda and ISIS, were very significant. Al-Qaeda was very significant and actually planned and led the attack on our consulate, which in my opinion was to kidnap the ambassador, because I think they wanted to use him as trading material for some of their own people who were in prison in Iraq under the administration there. They're going to come out and they're going to come after us anywhere they can, whether it's overseas. And that's where we as Americans have to be cognizant of not only what's going on overseas, but here. They have the will to want to kill us and destroy us. And when you fight against somebody like that, it's almost impossible to stop it, but you got to just be diligent in it.
Well, Krystal's kind of blown the whistle on you here, I'm afraid. I hate to out you. Us guys have to stick together, but she says that you were showing her all these beautiful photos of Benghazi like it was some kind of resort destination. Everything was going to be fine, no big deal. And Krystal, you weren't buying it at all, right? I mean, this felt different, seemed different. He was kind of blowing smoke at you, right? You knew this wasn't right.
Oh, for sure. I had gotten used to him being in Iraq and Pakistan and all of those countries. I didn't like it. I didn't feel, when I say comfortable, I wasn't comfortable with him being in countries where people wanted to kill him by any means, but I had grown kind of used to it. And then when he was going to Libya, I had a bad feeling about it anyway. And he was showing me these beautiful pictures, telling me it's like I'm going to a resort town. And I just thought, I'll sit here.
Good try.
This, but I know they don't send you to places like this. And then he was also getting all his affairs, his will, all of these things in order. And I thought, shoot, last time I went on vacation, I didn't update my will, but I knew it was important for him to think that I believed that. Just the same as when he would tell me, we'd be on a phone call and he'd say, "Oh, I gotta run to the office real quick. I gotta go." And I thought, oh, they must have run out of pens and paper or something. That's probably what he's up to. No, I knew better. And yeah, I spent plenty of time praying.
So you go to this resort and you come back with 26 wounds, your body torn apart by shrapnel, your left arm nearly severed, hanging at a 90-degree angle, really held together only by skin and tendons. I suspect that resort is probably having a little trouble booking people after your stay. But let's turn our attention now to this Shadow Warriors project. It's really the only charity of its kind. Talk about what you do, and I'd like to really focus on the canines that you use and provide for these wounded contractors that come home, because I think that is just so amazing that you're doing that in such a profound way to support these men and women that are coming back.
Yeah, it was just really kind of like Krystal said, it was put on our heart to do this. And initially we started out helping just the private military contractors or the private security contractors. We have a canine therapy course, which is very similar to like a lot of the equine therapy courses that people have for the treatment of PTSD and TBIs. We are faith-based. Everything we do is in threes because it's the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. When we're training the dogs and when we're working with people and we bring them in, we introduce them to Christ. We use the dog to teach them how to manage their anxiety and their stress, because you're never going to get over that. What you go through, that trauma is going to always be there. It's a matter of making that decision in your mind to deal with it use it as a positive or a negative. And the dogs can really help us with that, because one of the ways we train the dogs is by to relieve stress, we instill stress. And it's kind of like young boys that are joining the Marine Corps, young men that are joining the Marine Corps, it's very stressful to be obedient. We're not naturally, as men and young boys, we're not obedient necessarily because it's stressful to do that. To overcome that, the Marine Corps puts stress in front of you, which is when you show up at boot camp, it's the drill instructor. And to keep from having him in my face yelling at me, I'll do whatever he says. And we kind of do the same thing with the dogs and with the guys and the gals that come through our program. We'll start, it's a 5-day program. They will handle a dog from day one, 24/7. They're responsible for that animal. And they are put through a lot of different things where by the end of the week, they're crawling with that dog and two other individuals and their dogs through confined space, through tunnels, going across bridges, swimming through the water, just a lot of stuff that just really instills, requiring you to manage your anxiety and your stress. The third thing we do is make sure everybody tells their story. I myself, that was probably the best thing that ever happened, was telling my story. And I've told it, thousands of times, and will continue to tell it, because I think people need to understand, that there's a way to deal with our trauma in a positive way, and not always from the negative that we see a lot of times. And my grandfather was a World War II vet and never told his story. 3 uncles were in Vietnam, never told their story. I had to learn it from other things. And we need to share that. We don't do that like we used to back in, around the kitchen table. Everyone has a story and it means something, and you need to pass those things down to your loved ones as well.
Well, and it's important that they feel that they're heard, right? That somebody cares enough to listen to them and hear them. And where do you do this? Where does this take place?
We've done it in a couple different places. We've done it down in Texas. There's a group down there that we've partnered with and used their facilities. But most of it happens up actually. The breeder of the dogs or my dog is Roan, named after Tyrone, who got killed next to me, where she came from. And it's a company called Baden Canine. They have been doing this with the Navy SEALs Museum, and they do it with us. And we go up there, we bring in people, and they've been breeding and training dogs for over 56, 57 years now. And they just have a whole nother concept of what it is like with the dog. And that relationship that men and canines have is something unique from all other animals.
And what do you see? What takes place when they come through this program and they get this dog, they form this relationship? What do you see when they make that connection and they bond with that dog? Krystal, what do you see happen with them?
It's quite amazing, actually, because you'll see kind of a light turn on, and they realize how they've been working in this anxious state. And we've actually heard them say, now I realize how I am to my family. I want them to do this, and I want them to do this now. And I can't be that way with this dog. And I realize all the stress that I'm holding is coming out onto my family. And when they're working this dog, they realize these type of dogs, you can't do that. You have to maintain your cool and your composure. And usually, a lot of times they're in tears because they recognize that they need more help, and that they need to be kinder, more gentle.
Yeah. And that's the only way they can get a dog to comply and do the things that they need to do, because that dog senses everything, right? They know what's going on with their owner.
Yes, they do. It's, because dogs not only do things by scent and those things, but they also, every living thing has energy, and we put off a vibration, we put off that energy, and there's a connection there between man and the dog, especially with the lead. When you're holding on to that lead, every emotion I'm feeling goes right down that lead into that dog. Very similar. I grew up farming and ranching and riding horses, and it's the same way with horses. When you're sitting on that horse, they feel everything that you feel. I think a good way to put it is just like with a dog is, there can be a fly that lands on the hip of a dog, and that dog can feel that fly when it lands there. And sitting on their hair, or it's how hard is it to, what kind of sensitivity do you have to be able to feel that? And that's what they feel, and that's how they feel to us, and they just help give us guidance and comfort too.
Well, and I think it's more than that too, because his service dog, like he said, he got from Baden Canine, and that's kind of what led to the canine program. She senses emotional stress, and I've seen her go to him. I've seen her comfort me, but also complete strangers. She would sense something going on, and she would go up to them and just put her head in their lap and give them comfort. I've seen this with the guys at the canine therapy when they're telling their story, and it's just amazing to see the calm and the relaxation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times you'll see the guys in the middle of telling their story, and when they get to a difficult part, we're just kind of sitting around and just kind of like a team room setting, and Roan will be sitting beside me, and she'll jump off the table or wherever she's at with beside me, go over, jump up beside that person, put her head in their lap, and their hand immediately goes to her without even missing a beat in what they're saying. But you can also then see that calmness come over them with that animal sitting there, and giving them that unconditional love that, a lot of times they don't feel they can get from people.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. And I think it's so creative and so amazing that you guys are doing that, and you're helping in, so many other ways as well. What can people do to support this charity? Because I think it's something that people need to know about, need to get behind. What can they do to support?
Yeah, so we are a 501c3. We're nationwide, so we're not just local, we are nationwide. So we do need the help. So you can go to our website, shadowwarriorsproject.org. You can donate there, go to Her Warrior Heart and donate there. If you don't want to donate online, you can certainly send support via check to our address on the website.
Look, it's all about, to me, after I went through everything, I looked at everything you guys are doing. It's about support, but it's not just about helping people stay where they are. It's about challenging them and challenging their resilience. It's not just about supporting them where they are. It's about saying, no, that's not good enough. You're actually challenging them to say, look, we're not just going to support you to sit where you are. We're challenging you to be resilient and to do 100% of everything you're capable of doing. I love the fact that you challenge these people to say, all right, look, you've got to step up. You've got to do everything you can. And you had an exchange, Krystal, where you were talking to Mark and you said, I feel like I've lost my husband. It feels like you died over there. You're not the same. And Mark, you responded, what would make you think I would be the same? Of course I'm different. And that's such reality. I mean, everybody's always patting everybody's hand and saying, oh no, it's going to be okay. You guys are so authentic. You said to him, it feels like you died over there. You're not the same. And you responded, what would make you think I would be the same? You guys acknowledge that and deal with it. And that's what got me so passionately behind what you're doing. That's reality.
Yeah, it is. You can't, it's up to us to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving on. Because if we sit and don't do anything, then we're never going to, one, not be better for ourselves, but not better for our children or for our spouses or for our society as a whole. To me, it's, you have a choice to be a victim or not. And I make that choice every day not to be a victim and to move forward and to help others move forward as well.
Well, and I think also is, we reached out for help when we needed it and help never came. And, at that point between that and feeling like I had lost my husband is, I have to find healing for us. We have to be proactive in that and take that on and do the work. And, yeah, you're right. You have to do it yourself. I'm here to help those who call. Absolutely. But it's a hard journey, but it's worth it. And I think for us, having the faith that we have and that we've felt even more strongly since has truly helped. I feel like if you have a strong faith, you'll have a strong marriage, you'll have a strong family, as well as yourself.
Mark, what happened to you over there, the toll it took on your family, if that just happens to you and you suffer it, then it's just penalty and loss. If you use it and you find a way to create value from that suffering, value from that loss, and you create things for yourself and others out of that, then that those terrible experiences you went through, that suffering, that infliction of pain and injury that you went through, at least it now becomes tuition, a very high price for that learning, a very high price that was paid for that, but at least it becomes lessons that you can learn and share with others. And that's where you're letting God use your life. You're not just being upset about it. You're saying, look, God has a plan. I mean, it's like Ecclesiastes 3:11. God has a plan that man can't understand, and everything's beautiful in its own time. We're going to turn this into some beauty. We're going to create value in somebody else's life. And you've got somebody that's ready to punch their ticket and leave this world. And now a year later, they're walking a mile up Stone Mountain because somebody challenged them and demanded resilience. Come on, that is creating beauty in its own time right now. That's God using your lives and your suffering to impact others. And there is no higher calling than exactly what you guys are doing. Will you find better ways to scale up and do it next year than last year? I have no doubt, but people have to step up and help you with that. Look, maybe it's $5, maybe it's $5,000. Whatever you can do to help. I'm sitting here talking to heroes. Mark was a hero in Benghazi on that night. Krystal is a hero with wives and return contractors, and these guys are using their lives to move forward. And God bless you for doing it. I can't tell you. God bless you for doing it.
And to your point, if it doesn't have to be a large donation, I mean, those are very nice and all of that, but the number of people that support us, or those small dollar donations that reoccur every month, are what keep the doors open and keep us moving forward, because they are giving something that is maybe be the last $10 that they can give that month. Or maybe they'll hold back. We've had people, well, I'm not going to do this month so I can give you a little bit of money. And, and I love our donors so much, and everybody out there that donates and who supports our military and our veterans and all the other nonprofit organizations that are making a difference in others' lives. It's such a honor to be able to use their money in a way to help them help others.
I appreciate you taking the time to educate me and our viewers about what you're doing, and hopefully we can scale this up at whatever rate you guys think it's doable. The main thing is I want to educate people about it and get people to support what you're doing. So thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. I can't tell you how much it means.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Proud to know both of you, and look forward to meeting you in person and talking further about this.
Likewise.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. So long.